It is never too early to look ahead, and you certainly will want to with this slate of Week 1 games.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Today, taking a look at some of the top matchups to look forward to in Week 1 of the college football season. We're just about 4 months away from these matchups taking place, and it's marquee matchups like this that make Week 1 so important and so exciting. You know, every year, it's a brand new year. These teams have sky-high expectations. Some of these teams have brand new coaches. Some of these teams have brand new starters. And it's the first time that these respective teams will be playing someone other than themselves. It's a chance to see what their team will look like and what they're made of against some elite and decent competition instead of a group of 5 or FCS school that they are paying to come play them. These are the games that we look forward to the most in Week 1. And we'll kick things off with arguably the best matchup in Week 1. That is Alabama taking on USC in Arlington, the Advocare Classic. And this is the first rematch of an Advocare Classic, as Alabama and USC both met in 2016, where Alabama won 52-6. Now, of course, matchups like this, history does not mean anything. And another thing you have to keep in mind is, you know, these Week 1 games, while they are exciting and while they're a great chance to boost your resume, especially for college football playoff contenders, they do not make or break your season. USC back in 2016 is a great example of that, as they got annihilated by Alabama, started the season 1-3, but finished the season 10-3 with a win in the Rose Bowl and a top 10 finish. That's how good that USC team was. You lose to an elite team like this, doesn't ruin your entire season. If anything, it makes you better. Bama, back in 2016, that was the year they went 14-1, but fell to Clemson in the final seconds in the national championship game. But let me tell you, this matchup now in 2020, 4 years later, this matchup has the chance to be much more competitive than that 2016 matchup. It really, really does. You know, both teams were going through a lot at that point, had a lot of questions on both sides of the ball. This year, that's more on Alabama's side. Mac Jones will be the head man down in Tuscaloosa, taking over for the great Tua Tagovailoa. And luckily, we saw a lot of Mac Jones last year. When Tua went down with an injury, Jones played in a handful of games, including that loss to Auburn, but that was plenty of great playing experience, and then that bowl victory over Michigan. So he has some elite playing experience here against quality opponents. So Alabama's going to be, I think, in better shape at quarterback than they think. But they do, of course, lose a lot of great wide receivers, Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy. They lose, of course, a lot on the defensive side of the ball. But as we say every year, that always happens to Alabama. They always seem to bounce back. For USC, Keaton Slovis is back, arguably one of the better quarterbacks in the entire Pac-12. And he brings back one of the better wide receiver duos in the Pac-12 in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyler Vaughns. So this USC offense has enough to really test and challenge this Alabama defense, especially with one that's replacing a lot of key pieces, and for both teams that may not have a lot of practice time due to this whole coronavirus, depending on when they start. USC could catch Alabama napping early and could make a game out of this one early in Week 1, especially with Clay Helton's job on the line. Of course, him being towards the top of many people's list of coaches on the hot seat. So this game in Arlington, going to be a very, very fun one and should not be a reenactment of that 52-6 beatdown we saw in 2016. Below that, we have Ole Miss taking on Baylor in Houston. And this is a sneaky good matchup I'm really, really looking forward to for multiple reasons. The first one is you're going to see a great contrast in style. And you might ask, well, how is that? It's because both of these teams have brand new coaches in Ole Miss's Lane Kiffin and Baylor's Dave Aranda. Aranda, of course, arguably one of the best defensive coordinators in all of college football before he came to take this Baylor job. Lane Kiffin is a big-time offensive mastermind. So you're going to see one of the better defensive minds in college football going up against a great offensive mind in college football in the first game of the season at a neutral site. You're also going to see two great quarterbacks going at it, assuming that John Rice Plumlee gets the starting job at Ole Miss. They have a lot of questions, a lot of battles to be answered down in Oxford. But you listen to these stats here, the one thing that's really going to be interesting to me is Dave Aranda last year was the defensive coordinator at LSU. LSU defeated Ole Miss by 21 points, but not before John Rice Plumlee ran for 212 yards and 4 touchdowns against the eventual national champions. Can Aranda's defense, a Baylor defense that only returns 3 starters from one of the best in the Big 12 last year, will they be able to contain John Rice Plumlee if, in fact, he does get the starting job and plays a decent amount in this game down in Houston? So that's going to be interesting to me to see Ole Miss and their offensive scheme going up against Dave Aranda's defensive scheme, one that might have a lot of key pieces they have to replace. But luckily for Baylor, they do return Charlie Brewer, who is one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. Very experienced, very accurate, does not make a whole lot of mistakes. So that's one thing that Baylor certainly has going for them, and the FPI believes that as well. Baylor getting the slight edge in this game, 54.3% chance for the Bears to win down in Houston. But this game right here is the one that you need to be keeping your eyes on. 2 new coaches, 2 brand new schemes, has the potential to be high scoring, and a very fun one, a great opportunity for both of those coaches to get a resume boosting win, first win at their respective schools. Going down to Atlanta, we have Florida State taking on West Virginia. Now, there are maybe some other games that we could have put on the board besides this one that's taking place down in Atlanta. But I like this one a lot because, of course, for Florida State, it's Mike Norvell's first game with the Seminoles, and he's going up against Neil Brown in his second year at West Virginia. So these two teams aren't going to be ranked at the beginning of the season. We know that. It's not your top 25 matchup, your flashy top 25 matchup that everybody wants to see. But like Baylor and Ole Miss, it's kind of a sneaky good matchup between two teams that are still trying to figure out their identity and looking to get a huge win in their quest to get back to the postseason in 2020. I know Florida State made their bowl game in 2019, for West Virginia falling 1 game short, but these are not college football playoff contenders. These are not contenders to challenge for their conference championship this year. They're not. But it is a great opportunity for both of these squads, and I think most eyes will be on Florida State just to see the new look under Mike Norvell, because they were horrible under Willie Taggart. So will Florida State find this new life under him? Will they find some offensive firepower under Mike Norvell? Because, of course, that is his bread and butter. James Blackman more than likely will be the starting quarterback for the Seminoles. How well will he play? Will he take a step forward? Will the defense play much better than Florida State has the past few years? West Virginia, on the other hand, they've got a quarterback battle going between Austin Kendall, who led them to a 3-1 start before losing 5 straight games, and then Jared Doege, who started the final 3 games for West Virginia and won 2 of them. This Mountaineer squad right here, guys, was one that was not supposed to be very good in the Big 12 last year, but they won some games that they shouldn't have, and they competed in some games that they probably shouldn't have in their 5-7 season under Neil Brown. So this is a sneaky good game, not the most exciting of them all, but one at a neutral site that's going to be huge for each of these programs. And right now, the FPI is strongly favoring Florida State, giving the Seminoles a 67.2% chance to win. So odds are not in West Virginia's favor as of right now, but Florida State's been letting a lot of people down the past few years. Mike Norvell cannot afford to have that in his first game at the helm in Tallahassee. And then finally, rounding out our top 4 games, if you will, of Week 1, we're back in Atlanta for Georgia versus Virginia. This game taking place on Labor Day Monday, 2 days after this Florida State-West Virginia game. And all I can say is, I wish this game had happened last year. I wish this game had happened last year because Virginia is going to take a step back. Plain and simple, guys. They won the Coastal last year. They competed strongly against Florida in the Orange Bowl, but they lose so much across the board, including their star quarterback in Bryce Perkins, and 2 fantastic leaders defensively in Bryce Hall and Jordan Mack, that Virginia, in the wide open Coastal, could repeat as champions, but aren't going to be nearly as good as they were in 2019. All eyes will be on this game, not because of Virginia, but because of Georgia, who once again will be a college football playoff contender and will be led by transfer quarterback Jamie Newman. Jake Fromm is gone, goes to the NFL draft. Jamie Newman from Wake Forest steps in. Dual threat quarterback who many believe will give Georgia that boost offensively that they have been searching for and could finally be enough to get them back to the college football playoff and maybe bring them a national title. So Georgia's defense going up against a new quarterback in Brennan Armstrong at Virginia. Probably not the best recipe for a Cavaliers victory, but all eyes will be on Jamie Newman. How will he fare against a Power 5 opponent at a neutral site in a year that Georgia has sky-high expectations? The FPI strongly favors Georgia in this one, as we would expect. 95.3% Georgia wins in this game. That is what the FPI is saying. Of course, our official predictions will come out here in a few months, but something to keep your eye on there for these. And I didn't mention it earlier, but Alabama against USC, they are giving them an 80.7% chance to win that game against the Trojans. So these are kind of the marquee matchups you want to watch out for in week one. All taking place at a neutral site. Really, none of these are probably going to be ranked versus ranked matchups, but will provide for some entertaining football. Now, of course, this is not to say that these are the only good games in week one. We have a couple other notables we want to mention. The first one takes us to week 0. So the week before these games will even be played, we've got Notre Dame versus Navy in Ireland. College game day is going to be there, playing in a foreign country. It's going to be fantastic, especially with a rivalry game like that. Notre Dame versus Navy in Ireland to kick off the college football season in week 0. There are tons of Big Ten conference games in week 1. That includes games like Purdue and Nebraska and a sneaky good one in Indiana at Wisconsin. So a couple of Big Ten conference games to watch out for there that, in week 1 could greatly shape the conference standings. We have a great one between Michigan and Washington. Michigan at Washington. The Jimmy Lake era begins with the Huskies, while Jim Harbaugh desperately needs this road win against a solid Washington squad to keep Michigan's, really everything alive. He's kind of on the hot seat as we've discussed. He has not been known to win the big games. Going way out west to Washington against a new coach, but against a Washington team that has been towards the top of the Pac-12 standings for the past 3 or 4 years under Chris Peterson would be a huge resume-boosting win for the Wolverines, as both teams have a lot of key pieces they have to replace. And then finally, one other big game that might not be on people's radars, North Dakota State at Oregon. Oregon losing Justin Herbert, going to have to replace their star quarterback with somebody, potentially Anthony Brown. Might rely more on C.J. Verdell. But you're bringing in the reigning FCS national champions going up against what should be a top 10 Oregon team that has Ohio State the week after. Could the reigning FCS national champs catch the Ducks off guard? Could Trey Lance and the Bison go in there and pull off a major upset in week 1? I can tell you this, they're not just going to go in there and roll over. That game in Eugene, one that you definitely want to watch out for as well. So these are the top 4 marquee matchups. Plenty more to keep your eye on. Guys, football is right around the corner, and I can assure you we are, in fact, going to have a season. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out everything we have for you in the description below. Tons of more college football news, content, and updates from us that you do not want to miss, so check it all out. And once again, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.